As we all know, Zephyr Needle got banned last Thursday, and even though that did impact IRA in a big way, I still think she's one of the better decks in CC going into Memphis this weekend. A lot of people have been pretty doom and gloom about the whole Zephyr Needle ban, and to be fair, I get it, it's a big change, but at the same time, Ira's still extremely powerful, and she's one of the best mid-range / aggro decks in the format. Her ability to block and still pressure her opponents every turn gives her probably the best overall matchup spread, I think, in CC. And today, we're going to break down the deck and we're going to talk about why I think she's so good. Thanks for stopping by, guys. I hope you enjoy the video. Let's start off by talking about Ira's hero ability and how that plays into our game plan. Ira's hero ability says your second attack each turn gets +1. This is so simple and so elegant, but it's also so powerful and really gives us the ability to play aggressive and to play the long game. Blood Splattered Vest has been an amazing addition to this deck. When you pair Vest with Flick Knives, this is basically just Tunic on command. You can get 3 resources out of this, or you can get 2 resources and then block with it. This card does it all, and I think this card's going to be a really, really good card in IRA. Flick Knives at this point honestly needs no introductions. Being able to throw Kodachis at people, or when we were throwing Zephyr Needles, being able to flick them and get that extra value off of our retrieve cards, plus all the damage that this card sets up, is really good, and this keeps Mask Momentum alive. If you throw 2 attacks and then you throw a third one and your opponent blocks, you can flick one of your daggers from beforehand to keep Mask Momentum alive and really put you in a good spot heading into the 4th chain link to try and hit Mask Momentum one more time. We are playing Kodachis now. I had originally been on Needles like most of the world, but Kodachis are a good replacement for this. Plus, Kodachis don't really have the ability to get blocked and broken, so this gives us a really, really good late game. Mask Momentum has been a ninja staple pretty much forever. We love this card. The ability to pressure our opponents works out really well. Being able to go Kodachi into a 1-for-5 is extremely powerful and can threaten Mask and put our opponent in some awkward situations, especially after a turn where we've already blocked 6 to 8. Quickdodge Flexors is also from the Hunted. This card is really, really powerful and I really like it. This is actually my only blocking leg piece I'm running in the deck. This card has the ability to pitch a blue and block 6, or you can pitch 2 blues and block 12. Now, be careful. There is some counterplay to this. Sometimes your opponents will just end their turn early to not get as blown out by this, but Quickdodge Flexors is a really good card, and I think it fits really well into the deck with our 21 blue count. First up on attack actions is Bittering Thorns. This has been a great card ever since it got printed in the Tolarian College or whatever it is. This being a 1-for-4 that basically gives a +1 when it hits is extremely powerful. Plus, we can throw this on Chain Link too to make it a 1-for-5 if we don't want this to get covered up by a defense reaction. Bittering Thorns is a great staple of the deck and allows us to pressure our opponents. Not everybody's on this card from what I've seen. This is one of the most underappreciated cards in Flesh and Blood in my opinion. The ability to be able to name a card to prevent your opponent from doing things is very, very powerful. Now, don't get me wrong, sometimes you name and you miss and it can be a little awkward. Censor is extremely powerful. If you're not on this card, I encourage you to at least try it. Censor is a 3-block that has the ability to be a great chain ender and can really hinder our opponent's turn. I love this card and it's going to be an automatic 3-up for me in IRA. Command and Conquer, this card needs no introduction, although the new art is pretty cool. The EA versions of the new one are pretty sweet, but Command and Conquer is just a great value card at 2-for-6. It works out really well, and it's a good chain ender for us when we need it to be. We can also throw this as a 2-for-7. One of the better lines you can take is to go Kodachi into Command and Conquer for 7 and make blocking for your opponent really, really awkward. Cut Through is a new card. This is basically a 0-for-3 with Go again. It's basically like a 0-for-3 is how we have to look at this card. But if you've hit with a dagger this combat chain, it gets +1 and Go again. So turning this into a Blaze Headlong is really, really powerful. The floor of this card is ending your turn with it. So there is a little bit of downside to this card, but we can use Flick Daggers or Flick Knives to throw one of our daggers pretty much anytime we want to turn this card on and make it work the way we need to. E-Strike feels like an auto include for me. Don't get me wrong, E-Strike is not the most impactful card, but we are on 21 blues, and from time to time we may draw all reds, and if we have an E-Strike to go along with that, instead of just blocking out with everything, we do have the option to keep E-Strike and then try to throw 7 at them, or to draw 5 and set up an arsenal. Really just depends on what we're feeling at that point in time, but E-Strike is a good addition. Pain in the backside. This head jab is very powerful. When this hits a hero, target dagger you control deals 1 damage to them. If damage is dealt this way, the dagger is hit. You'll notice the text box here, we do not destroy our dagger. We can actually go Kodachi into pain in the backside for 4, and then if it hits, we get to deal a damage to them with the Kodachi and not destroy our dagger, meaning we can still use flick knives, which is extremely powerful. I really like pain in the backside. This card seems really good, and it fits in really well with what we're trying to do here. Pick up the point is another head jab, but this card says when this attacks, you may retrieve a dagger from your graveyard, which is basically just paying 1 to get your dagger back. We're playing 12 retrieve cards on our list, which I think are very powerful. Pick up the point gives us the ability to go dagger into dagger, flick the first dagger, play pick up the point, and use our last resource to get our Kodachi back. So we're just going into our next turn with both of our Kodachi set up, plus throwing a head jab to try and hit mask momentum here. I think pick up the point works really well. That's why we're on both blues and reds, because it's a good aggressive card, but as many cards as we can play to get our daggers back, the better off we're going to be. And that's why we're on 12 copies of retrieve cards. Scrolling down just a little bit here, we'll save the inventory here for just a minute. Torrent of Tempo is just a solid 1 for 5 that blocks 3. It doesn't have the combo text box, so there's nothing really crazy happening here. It's block 3, it's a 1 for 5 with potential go again. There is a world where your opponent doesn't want to block and this gets go again, and then you can throw something else afterwards. Or throwing this on mask means that if you draw into something really good and they let you have it, you just have mask and momentum draw and the go again, which can be very, very powerful. Up Sticks and Run is probably one of the better cards from the Hunted, in my opinion. It is the best card from the Hunted for IRA, I think, but this card is really, really powerful. You may retrieve a dagger from your graveyard. Your next dagger gets +4 this turn. This card enables so many powerful lines where we can block and then use flick knives and try to set up mask momentum and do a lot of things here. Up Sticks and Run is absolutely awesome. This is copies 7 through 12 of our retrieve cards to be able to get us there. Plus the buff on the daggers is really, really solid. Being able to throw Kodachi for 5, especially in the late game, is going to be absolutely insane. And I really like Up Sticks and Run in this build. It's felt very clean so far. I am playing Concealed Blade. Now, it's worth mentioning that if I wasn't on Concealed Blade and the third Kodachi in my sideboard, I would probably be on another 1 power 3 block attack that works with some of our other cards for synergy that we have here, maybe another combo card. But Concealed Blade is really good at helping us play through some of the Gravekeepings or the Sacred Arts that banish cards. We have a lot of we have some cards here to help us with counterplay of banishing things from our graveyard, and Concealed Blade fits that role perfectly. 1-2 Punch is a 1 power 3 block blue that turns on Kodachis. I like this card a lot. It has combo. We haven't talked about it yet, but I am playing Flic Flak on the sideboard, so playing all of these combo cards here in Rushing River, Rising Knee Thrust, and 1-2 Punch fit really well into the deck. Plus, they all block 3, so they're just perfect fits for what we're trying to do, and they fill out our blue curve very well. Throw Dagger. If you've not had a chance to play this card, I would tell you to try it. This card's absolutely insane. Target dagger you control that isn't on the active chain link deals 1 damage to the defending hero. If damage is dealt this way, the dagger has hit and you draw a card, destroy the dagger. This gives you a way to throw a dagger and replace itself by drawing you a card, which is insanely powerful. Throw Dagger is one of the best blues we can put into this deck. I really like this card. It fits into everything we're trying to do with this deck. It's a blue 3 block that turns on Kodachis, and it draws us a card if we need to. Why would we not play this card? This card's absolutely insane. If you haven't tried it, I'm telling you, try this card. It's very, very powerful. All right, let's go ahead and take a look at our sideboard here. Our sideboard is a mix of a few different things to try and help us shore up some other matchups here. First up is Bleed Out. I'm only playing 48 cards in my main deck, which means I'm bringing in 12 cards into every matchup to try and fill in those gaps here. Bleed Out is a very, very good go again card that really lines up and can be a 0 for 4 if it works out well. We want this in matchups where we want to pressure our opponents and either trying to keep the board clear for Enigma, or we're trying to put them on the back foot and trying to win the race here. Next up is Double Strike, which actually does the exact same thing. Now, admittedly, Double Strike is a little bit better when you're playing Tiger Stripe Shuko, so when you need it into Enigma, it works out a lot better for us. But Double Strike is just really good at awkwardly pushing, and people don't want to block this. So throwing Double Strike is a good way to try and pressure your opponent, trying to set up mask momentum over multiple chain links, and honestly, just trying to keep the board clear against Enigma. Flic Flak really needs no introduction. This card's basically just a 0 for 6 if it lines up. If it's not, then it really is just a 0 for 4, which is perfectly fine. It's just a great defense reaction, and we're playing quite a few defense reactions in the sideboard, and this is just better than Fate Foreseen. So we absolutely have Flic Flaks in. Gravekeeping. This is a card that LSS and Brian Gottlieb in particular has really talked about and pushed quite a bit. This is a 1 for 5, and it says when this attacks a hero, you may banish a card from their graveyard. This is actually really good in the mirror. I like this card a lot because it gives us an ability to try and banish their daggers, because there's a chance that they flick a dagger at you and they're not able to retrieve it back. Plus, Gravekeeping has some really good synergy against Count Your Blessings, and there's still a few of those decks floating around in the meta. So I think Gravekeeping actually fits really well and can help us banish other things. Plus, there might always be an opportunity where we throw a Gravekeeping at a Syndra where they don't have their daggers. If our opponent doesn't have a blue, then they are pitching 3 reds or whatever they can do to get their daggers back so that we don't get to banish them, which actually takes them off tempo quite a bit. Even if they have to pitch a blue, it still works out for us because we're taking them off kilter and they're feeling a little awkward there. So Gravekeeping is a very, very good sideboard card, and I like it exactly for its text box. Looking for a Scrap is really where we get some synergy out of our 1 power blues that we're trying to block with here. Looking for a Scrap is trying to be a 1 for 5 with Go Again. Now, this works out really well for us because we're trying to pressure some opponents in certain matchups, and I like this card a lot to do exactly that. You'll notice that when I want to pressure opponents, I have Bleed Out, Double Strike, and Looking for a Scrap. So we bring in quite a few aggressive cards, and we can really just try to get in there and push as much damage as possible and really keep our opponent from taking tempo from us early on in the game. Shelter from the Storm. This card is crazy. This card very quickly replaced Fate Foreseen in my deck list. Looking at this card, it's very easy to see why. It is a 0 for 4 defense reaction, or it's an instant discard this. The next 3 times you would be dealt damage this turn, prevent 1 of it. This card's insane in the mirror. It helps us prevent Kodachis. We're trying to really stop Mask this way. This card's also insane against Syndra. It really helps us prevent the daggers and anything else that they're trying to leak over the top. So I really like Shelter from the Storm. I think that this card is a great addition to the deck, and it's just strictly better than Fate Foreseen when we're looking at defense reactions here. Sink Below has been around forever. This card needs no introductions. We're playing 12 defense reacts. We're playing 9 defense reactions in our sideboard. This just fits the bill as better than Fate Foreseen, so we have Sink Below in the list. Warmonger's Diplomacy is a really good add into Viserai and Azalea to try and slow them down. Now, this card won't just win you the game. A lot of decks have really enabled their game plans to play around this card ever since it got printed. But keep in mind, this card is really good and can help buy you a little bit of breathing room. Against Viserai, I actually don't cut any blues. I just play 24 blues and jam in 3 Warmongers. I think it's a really good play, and it fits really well in trying to slow them down to get us some breathing room, because I think Viserai is one of the matchups we will struggle into the most. We have the 3rd Kodachi in the sideboard, working with that Concealed Blade to try and play around some graveyard hate and any shenanigans where they may be trying to get our daggers. And then Tide Flippers is strictly for Arcane Barrier. There could be a situation where we could give something Go Again late in the game to try and pressure our opponent, but I think having AB1 is very important. One thing I did consider is having more sources of AB in our sideboard, but I don't know that a lot of people are going to be on Kano in Memphis this weekend, although now is about the time when people have stopped talking about it enough that maybe it just sneaks up out of nowhere and Majin Bay is just hey, and wins the calling with it. Could be a thing, but I'm not really planning to play around that. So we have AB1 on the sideboard to kind of help us out against Viserai, Florian, or any other deck that provides one instance of Arcane against us. If you look at the deck list, a lot of the cards that I've added are from the Hunted. I think the Hunted really did a lot for Ira and gave her a really big boost. Now, unfortunately, some of them are 2 blocks, which is a little unfortunate because we do really like to be value blocking. But one of the things that she really does well is that Ira still plays 2-card hands really well, so you're able to give up 2-3 blocks and then like throw both of your Kodachis and play an up 6 and run and use the Flick Knives, the Blood Splattered Vest to get that resource and come in for still quite a bit. So you're still having like 4-card 15s and 16s instead of like 4 cards like 18 and 19s. It really works out and you're getting a lot of value out of the Ira deck. So I think that all of the new cards fit really well in her game plan and give us an avenue to actually be a little bit more aggressive when we need to against certain matchups. Check out my deck list in the video description down below. Let me know what things you think I got right, what I've gotten wrong, or what I can change. I'd love to hear about it in the comments, guys. If you enjoyed the video, be sure to like and subscribe for more content. Thanks for watching. I'll see you next time. Take it easy, guys.